Okay, thank you ever so much, everyone, for inviting me to talk today. It's a huge privilege, I can't tell you, and all the work that we do is, a huge team effort, particularly my team, for all the partners. So I hope I do them proud in presenting today all of the work that we've been doing. So over the last 15 years, we've been involved with many different projects and pilots and a huge partnership of organisations working to try and answer some of the questions that were on the Slido, right the way through from the catchment-based approach to the payments ecosystem services pilot that we did in 2013. We've done projects that are now international case studies of building resilience for farmers, working with communities. Really passionate about the facilitation funding groups of farmers. We now run 4 of those. And we've obviously also been doing the natural management pilots. And most recently ELMS, which has been a fantastic opportunity, which I hope to share with you today. And we're really lucky to link into some really fantastic science institutions as well, through Reading University and CH and Rothamsted as part of some of the research projects doing our work. So we hope that what we're showing you has got a good scientific foundation and a basis for a huge amount of work. All of what we do is based around a framework that we developed a long time ago now, 2004, which is integrated local delivery. And this came from a heritage lottery project that I was involved with, because what we found was that what was missing from the countryside was local communities and farmers being valued for their knowledge, for their contribution to being able to deliver all the challenges that we face and all the opportunities that there are out there. And there seem to be multiple different stakeholders who had lots of single issue agendas, and none of those seem to be able to be joined together very easily, creates this web of confusion for people living on the ground as to how to actually act and take action. And this, at the moment, particularly with climate emergencies, seems to be a really important thing. People want to act. And what we hope is we'll show how this framework will enable not only all the partners to deliver strategically together, but also how people can be valued as local communities for their contribution and to help build strong socioeconomic communities, particularly in the light of the economic challenges we may face going forward from coronavirus. So as part of our ELMS trial, we were trying to build on what we'd already learned and already had researched over many years, but we felt that it was really important to try and create a baseline for a new way of thinking. So our ELMS trial was a farmer-led trial, building on all the projects that are all farmer-led trials that we've done here in the Cotswolds. And it was really about developing a natural capital mapping tool that enabled us to create an opportunity from which investment and funding and natural capital recovery could flow. And obviously we were partners with Tim in the Landowners and Ordnance Survey, and that's given us a huge opportunity to have the resource to further develop that. The other thing we wanted to show was that none of the join-up, none of this happens, and none of the opportunity is easily understood without specialist advisors that can actually not only value the contribution of everyone else and signpost to that connectivity, but can actually create those opportunities and realise those opportunities at a local level. And what we hope to show is how they can blend finance effectively to be able to bring that opportunity into the one world that we have. There may be multiple strategies, but there's only, there's one land, one world that we can actually invest in, and that's what needs to be done in a strategic way. So what we've been trying to do is to work very closely with Defra and all the different Defra teams and answer some of their questions around what does a land management plan look like, what does advice look like, and the innovative mechanisms and all the things you can see on the screen, and actually fit this within their aspiration. And what we've seen so far on the ELMS advisory board in relation to the development potentially of Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3. And we see some real opportunities here. It's slightly inverse to the way that it's currently thinking, which we hope will present a good case for today. So our aim is to take you today, in 15 minutes, to rattle through what we see as being this huge opportunity where you have a mechanism that's simple forward-facing to farmers, but we can collate and verify data with farmers and communities, valuing their knowledge that can actually enable us to understand how their land is prioritised. And then we can take that data we're using UK habitat mapping, which I'll explain briefly, and actually create collaboration across the landscapes to understand the ecosystem services that those habitats provide, and then collate a baseline for our counties to be able to deliver net gain and multiple blended finances through integrated partnership working. And again, as I say, create this opportunity to deliver the 25-year environment plan and the United Nations Sustainability Goals by enabling a sort of co-management, co-investment in the land that we all own and love. So we were trying to demonstrate that there's an opportunity for us all to be able to act on climate change and become resilient. And it's really about demonstrating and valuing the role of farmers and farmland to communities and making sure that that connectivity is there. And our trial included 20 farmers, 30 control farmers, 5 communities and 10 stakeholders. And it was a very short, sharp trial over 6 months. We all worked very hard, and building on the project that we've run for nearly 7 years, the Waterwood Integrated Local Delivery Project, which is now an international case study. So the ambition was to work with Tim at Landowners and Ordnance Survey to actually start to look at natural capital mapping, building on the work that we did for Dutchy for 2 years, and actually start to see, could we actually streamline and create a mechanism that will be able to be transferable within to Elm. And as I said, we decided to use UK habitat mapping, and I'll try and explain the reasons for that. And what it did enable us to do was enable us to go out on farms and verify data with farmers, so that we can actually be able to make sure we have accurate information on the state of our environment in which the people who live there can directly contribute towards. So UK habitat mapping is a new way of classifying habitats that's been developed by some very clever people at Accountability and CEH, and actually combines all the different ways that we currently assess the environment. So it combines and can translate from those different ways that we assess the land in the past. And that's something we'll talk a bit more about later on. But what's really clever about it is that it's hierarchical, so that it has a simple initial stage where you can actually classify the habitat anybody could go out and classify a grassland or a woodland, which is the first level. But actually, as you sequentially go down through the more detail that it offers you, then you can actually start to build a much stronger picture towards the different types of habitats and the way that they're managed. And the reason why we do this is because we understand already from previous work that's been done on ecosystem services that actually we know that there's a functionality to all the different land use types, and it enables us to be able to start to create that platform for natural capital recovery. And we particularly want to use ecosystem services rather than just natural capital, because that includes the essential role of food and fibre and provisioning. And our aspiration is that if we're able to do so, that with the support of CH and Rothamsted and the AgLand project, we may be able to attribute function to every single habitat type and every single management code. So through the UK habitat mapping, you basically then start to build the picture with sequential letters that give you more information based around simple code. So to level 2, you can then start to work out what type of grassland it might be, what type of woodland it might be. And the good thing about this system is that it includes cropland and urban, which means that we can map everywhere, not just the habitats that we know and love, but every piece of land cover can have an attribution from the function. And so if you end up with, sort of like we were saying, you've got an opportunity for other advisors and the specialists and ecologists to be able to help in that, but some farmers will be able to classify land themselves, but they may need some assistance. So you've got a simple code where you can actually start to go from woodland to defining its habitat type. We're also able to assess the arable options, the arable lands, and you can see on the right-hand side, the coding enables us to be able to take the detailed data of what is actually happening on that land and map it through the land map, which Tim will be able to talk to you about later, to be able to show you exactly what's on that land. And as I say, we're able to attribute that and convert that from existing countryside stewardship and basic payment schemes. And what we can do then, and why it's so clever, is it then starts to be able to attribute management function to those different habitat types. So you can start to carry on further down your level of assessment to actually create context within that habitat. And again, the ambition is that we can start to attribute function to those. It also enables us to be able to attribute linear features, walls and wet ditches, to create a very complex opportunity for mapping the very detail of what the land is actually doing, which includes the way that it's managed and the matrices based around 5 metre squares of habitat type. But where it's particularly clever is that these simple codes create us an opportunity to not only collect a huge amount of data in a small linear equation, but actually we can then start to analyse those functions across the landscape. And in our trial, we've basically been able to summarise what we've been doing through this. So there is now a full report that's available for you to see. So what you end up with is this wonderful UK habitat map. This is Henry Robinson, Alex Robinson is probably on their call. And what we're really thinking is that under Tier 1, that this submission, this verification of data, should really be rewarded as a baseline for farmers to the equivalent of basic payment scheme of at least £150 a hectare that could feed into the verification of local nature recovery strategies and nature recovery networks. And that this is something that we think that all farmers could do an annual submission, and obviously that part of that payment might be to help them protect soil and water and all the things that Tier 1 aspires to as well. Where the project has been really brilliant is we've been able to feed our development of thinking around UK habitat mapping into the Land App, and Tim and the developers and designers at Ordnance Survey have been able to help us do that. And so we can work with our trial farmers to convert our BPS and RCS directly into UK Hab for that. And as I say, what we learned was that was a much simpler and more rewarding process for the farmers if they were given the support of advice to be able to do that. And this graph shows the success of the ability of farmers to be able to do that mapping with advice on the left and without the poor control farmers on the right. So the aspiration then is, and this is our Ernest Cook Trust farmers, is that you then start to create a Tier 2 opportunity where, building on the success of the catchment-based approach and the facilitation funds, that Tier 2 enables you, particularly through UK Hab mapping and through the Land App, farmers can share their Hab maps with their neighbours, and you can start to create the collaboration across the landscape. And what that then enables us to do is to create water bodies and catchments and landscapes where we can start to attribute function and run analysis against those data gaps to see whether or not we've got a good quality for pollinators, or we've got areas of hedgerow we might want to restore. It might create opportunity mapping for woodland planting and grassland restoration, all different types of habitat types. But it's a real opportunity for us to create that baseline. So what we've done is we want to show how it builds on our work to help with the water companies, so that we are actually able to help farmers understand and contextualise each field parcel that they have, and the rural communities to be able to work out the green spaces and the urban environments, and actually work out how we can attribute function in a wider context and all those different strategic priorities possibly in the global context of each field parcel. So we want to link this directly. We feel that the real opportunity here is to link this into the delivery of 25-year environment plan and the United Nations sustainability goals, and communities to be able to become resilient by understanding how they can work more closely with farmers to be able to build that resilience both for food, water, energy, habitat restoration, water quality, air quality. And actually what this mapping does is enables us to be able to create that sort of review and refresh of an annual submission of how the land and the environment is coping in relation to climate change and the provisioning and regulating cultural services we need it to supply. And we create opportunity data points that we are able to share. You can't quite see on this map, but there is more you can delve down into detail of this, and the farmers and communities are invited to create opportunity maps that we then share with our catchment partnerships and local nature partnerships to enable kind of coordinated action to be able to create mitigations and opportunities for a healthy, sustainable environment to underpin economic growth. So this builds directly on our work that we've been doing since 2013 with the WILD project, which creates a template for farmers and communities to work together along water bodies. The red dots are the data sets that I was suggesting. And we've got some really good examples of how farmers have made real benefits to their communities by reducing flooding and providing local food and all those things. And actually we can sort and share that data, which again, Land App really helps us to do, because we can link directly the strategic objectives and duties and priorities of all the different public and private and third sector organisations directly attributing to the assets and issues that the farmers and communities find within their community. One of the things that we've been really focusing on is infrastructure, where there's infrastructure that's actually making flooding, such as road verges being, channeling water down into the central villages, and foul infrastructure being impacted by surface waters on roads, and sewage surcharging into rivers. And quite often we can find there's multiple simple issues that could be resolved rather than big, huge investments in flooding. Sometimes it's a lost ditch, or it's some very old historic way that we managed the land around our communities, which has been lost and forgotten. And this enables the culture of our communities to help in the learning and collating of that data. And as I said, this is all part of now an international case study that has a toolkit through the International European Environmental Programme, which is available for people. So what we want to do is to show how this would fit. We want ELMS to be more than just an agri-environment scheme. It needs to be able to have a justification to replace the value of basic payment scheme to support and sustain our farm businesses and our countryside, and create mechanisms where grasslands and habitats can actually be funded for the ecosystem services that they provide for all of us. And as part of the ambition to produce nature recovery networks at a county level is happening quite a lot at the moment, and also may come as a duty under the Environment Act for local authorities to recover local nature recovery strategies. But what we learned through our trial is that none of this data is verified, that it's all been scraped from phase 1 surveys or national priority habitat inventories or local wildlife sites or all the different things that we've talked about. And actually we can translate all of those into a UK habitat map that effectively is a non-verified UK habitat map. But that gives us a real opportunity for the farmers and communities to pull that map into the Land Act as a non-verified local nature recovery strategy, and actually put in their submission and be paid for their submission to be able to quantify and qualify the exact state of the environment, and also hopefully to add the species data that many of our farmers and communities know is there, but often it goes unrecorded. What it also does is gives us an opportunity to understand how to blend finance, how to be able to facilitate as advisors this opportunity for natural capital to be recovered not only by social capital, that's the people that live in a locality, but by net gain coming from planning mitigations, which we're already delivering, from water companies and payments for ecosystem services and natural cover management, and obviously this huge opportunity of carbon and carbon trading and green finance and agri-tech. But what we're really, really keen for is that this trading becomes something that is part of the closed circle. And one of the things that we've recently learned is that we feel that there's a real opportunity for that funding to be held at a county level, as it is an example in Oxfordshire, where that funding effectively is held in a charitable trust that is then issued out in alignment with supporting farmers and communities in line with the shared strategy in which the farmers and communities have been part of the ambition in these local nature recovery strategies, and that this is a not-for-profit or charitable trust that then enables that the investment that's coming from maybe climate emergency funding or carbon trading or all these other things can be conduited in a way that is structured and beneficial, and that there's no profiteering and it's all above board and well managed. And nearly my final slide, sorry, I appreciate it's a lot of information. Please do get in touch if I can ever explain it in more detail. But basically what we're trying to understand is that there needs to be structure in a complex world, that we want to show a system by which we can all take action in a coordinated way, whatever role we play in whatever part of our lives we play it. So as local people, as communities, as farmers, as commoners, we can actually all manage and be involved in the piece of land that we know and love, and that we can feed that information through to strategic partnerships that are through catchments and facilitation fund groups, but up to a county level, so that state of the environment can be a recognised actual mitigation for encouraging sustainable development and sustainable food production, which is integral to our success and survival going forward with climate change. And I'm really delighted that we're now working directly with our sustainable food strategy for Gloucestershire, so we're directly making sure that this platform very much integrates food. So just to say, hopefully that sort of sums up all of the sort of like the complex slide that I showed you in the beginning. We've put in all the links to the work that we've been doing. It basically is trying to address those issues of making it simple, forward-facing for farmers who wish it to be. Some of our farmers are very interested in the complexity and contribution, and then effectively showing how that we can analyse the information and create annual plans and feed that data through to create a platform for collaboration and payments that should benefit all of us. So thank you very much for allowing me to present our work today. Thank you.
Brilliant, Jenny. Thank you so much for a very comprehensive run through.